Talk about a new report from the Montreal Economic Institute saying Ontario was right to cancel a minimum wage hike set for next year. That after Ontario's rapid increase in the minimum wage this year already contributed to the loss of about 56,000 jobs. For more on this and what other measures governments can take to help lower income workers, we're joined now by Alexandre Moreau of the Montreal Economic Institute. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure.
So you took a look in this report. You're saying this is the right move to head it off, and you say that when you do research in other areas where they've raised the minimum wage with the intent of helping low-income workers, it doesn't work out that way. Some of them lose their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, good intentions are laudable, but what we need is really to reduce poverty. And in fact, there is a wide body of evidence that indicates that a rapid increase in minimum wage is really a bad measure. And in fact, it might even increase poverty because a lot of people will lose their jobs. And as you mentioned, as soon as we increased the minimum wage in early this year, we saw the employment rate declining for the young workers. And also, what the literature review tells us, we can also expect that immigrants will also likely be negatively affected by the rapid increase in the minimum wage. So really, it's a bad policy, even though it's based on good intentions.
Now, when I take a look at your report and some of the numbers, this one really shocked me and stood out to me. When we talk about raising minimum wage, of course, you say the intention is to help these people making below 30 grand a year, roughly. But you found that 60% of the workers who were earning minimum wage in Ontario were those young people between the age of 15 and 24. Minimum wage workers with young families or single parents, very small percentage of this cohort, only 2%.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why it's a bad policy, because it's not even targeting those who are living below the poverty line. And in fact, most of them are students living with their parents. So if we really want to help those single parents with children who are struggling to get by each month, we need to use targeted measures that will help them based on what they need to survive, essentially, what they need in order to put food on the table for their kids. And that would be a good public policy. So essentially, it's really sad because this debate is really emotional, it's polarized. So we need to look at the facts, listen to what the science is telling us, and there is no debate. Minimum wage is a really bad policy to reduce poverty. In that sense, Larry Scott, the new Minister of Labor, is doing the right thing by taking politics out of the minimum wage.
I wanted to ask you about that then. We're seeing in Ontario, they're not going ahead with it, but then you need to do something else for the low-income worker. Just last week, Ontario was out with its fall economic update, that low-income individuals family tax credit, basically saying if you're a single person making less than 30 grand, that would put you in the minimum wage camp, or if you're a family, basically you're not going to pay the Ontario portion of the tax. Is this the kind of thing that this makes more sense? You've replaced one policy with the other?
Yeah, absolutely, because by doing so, you're really targeting those who are in need. And you don't have the negative effect of a rapid increase in the minimum wage. So there won't be any job loss. There won't be any rapid increase in the prices. I mean, like what we saw in Ontario since the minimum wage was increased in January, there was a significant increase in the price for food bought in restaurants. Actually, it was 3 times higher than the average in other provinces. So it is increasing the cost of living. But when you use those targeted measures, you don't have those negative effects. You only have a good effect, which is taking people out of poverty.
Part of what we heard, too, from Ontario business owners basically saying that if you peg an increase in minimum wage to inflation or some other measure and make it gradual, I think what really shocked them was with the speed and the aggressiveness of those hikes, and that's what sort of put them on the back foot. Is there something to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, increasing the minimum wage is not bad in itself. The thing is, when you increase it too rapidly and unexpectedly, it's harder for small businesses to adapt to these new costs, because it will increase their costs and reduce their margins. So eventually they will have to do something. They will pass on those extra costs to the consumers, or they will lay off, reduce the hours work. In any of those situations, it's a bad outcome for everyone. So by tying the future increases with the cost of living, it will be easier for them to plan ahead. And in doing so, we will reduce those negative effects that we know that would happen. And I mean, that every study indicates us. And actually, in Ontario, last year, we had the Financial Office, Accountability Office, who said that we could expect a loss of 50,000 jobs if we would increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So we're pretty much in that ballpark right now.
Now that Ontario has made this move in terms of giving this tax credit to low-income earners, is there further action for Ottawa to take in terms of giving, I guess, a bit of a tax holiday or break to the lowest-earning people in this country?
Yeah, I mean, on the government side, the first thing is do no harm. There's a lot of policy that are in place that are actually increasing the cost of living or reducing the employment opportunity, whether it's income taxes, inefficient regulations. It's harder for a small business to hire people, and when you have less job opportunity, you have less social mobility. It's harder for people to get into the labor market and get better off over the years. So the government first do no harm, and that would be a good thing, actually.
All right, thanks for your time and your insight today, Alexandre.
My pleasure.
Alexandre Moreau, public policy analyst at the Montreal Economic Institute.